So in this video we're going to look at the second exercise in the fourth set of exercises, and that is this one. And you can see here that it's two parts that interlock together. We already looked at using components in the previous video, and it's a really important thing that you use components again in this. So let's first quickly draw up the drawing of what we need. So we've got 800 by 600. We have this little slot in it, which you can see from the sketch. So let me zoom in a little bit. You can see from the sketch the slot between the center point and the outside of the slot is 60. So you have a width total of 120, 2 times 60, and then you 300 into the middle minus 60, so I need to make this 240. Okay. So 600 by 800, let's get started with that. There's my 600 by 800. I have the top of this slot here is halfway because it's 400 and the total height is 800. So let's drag a guideline in from that point and then move so we know that we snap exactly to the middle, which is 400. And then 300 there minus 60 means that that distance there is 240. So do that again, 240 on both sides. Oops, let's just go back a second. Let's try that again. Now we go 240. And this way as well, 240. So now I can take the pencil tool here and I can draw around where I've made my guidelines. And because a surface needs to be a completely enclosed shape, if I delete that line right there, it means the whole thing is going to disappear. Right, so all we need to do now is push-pull to a thickness of 120. And we should be able to make that into a component. Now you notice there I did that by clicking 3 times, 1, 2, 3, to select the whole thing. And here's the alternative way of making a component. If you right click with your mouse or control click on a Mac keyboard, then you can make a component using this contextual menu. I'm going to just go up and do this, which is what I showed you before. It's exactly the same. It's component 3 this time because we made component 1 and 2 in the last episode. And click create, and there you see I have my component. Now, if we go back to the drawing, you'll notice this is the only sketch. So what that tells me is that these two parts are identical to each other. In that case, then I just need to make a duplicate, and I know it's really easy to do that by taking my move tool and hitting the option key. See the little plus sign has appeared next to my cursor now, and I can just drag that now and make a copy of it. So now I have 2 copies of the same component. I now need to get them into position so that I can slot them together, like in the sketch. Now, this is where we introduce a new tool. It's called the rotate tool. And I have a separate video about the rotate tool, but I'm just going to go very quickly through how to use it. So the rotate tool is this one right here. And you can see that this thing that looks like a protractor appears when I choose it on my cursor. That means that if I was to now click on here, I would be able to rotate it in an axis parallel to this blue axis right here. Now if I play around with the arrow keys in the bottom right corner of my keyboard, I can turn it green, and you'll notice there's a green axis right here. That means that when I rotate something, it'll be rotated in an axis perfectly parallel to that green axis. I can also then do the same thing, which will rotate it in an axis parallel to the red axis. Now I say parallel to the red axis because it won't be on the red axis, it'll just be an axis wherever I click, which is parallel to the red axis. So how do we use this tool? Well, first of all, we choose it, of course, and then the first point where you click is going to be the place where your center of rotation is. So I'm going to just click randomly at this point here, and now you can see my protractor is stuck to the object, and I now need to click a second time, and you can see now that I can drag it up, and it's rotating around that point. I've just hit the escape key, which gets me back into the previous state, and now you can see I'm going to click somewhere else, and it rotates around a different point. So where you rotate is really important. What you've got to avoid, for example, is if I zoom out, if I click over here, for example, I need to first select the thing that I want to rotate. If I click over here, I'm going to be rotating it like that, and that can be a little problematic. So you've got to be careful where you rotate. So I want to just make it stand up. So I'm going to get into that axis there, the red axis, click, move a little bit, and then pull it up in a little bit in the direction I want to go. And now you can see in the bottom right corner, as I move up, the angle that I've moved it to is shown. Now I want to do this really accurately, so I'm just going to type 90 and hit the return key, and there I have my first rotated object. I'm going to do the same thing for the other one, except in the other direction. Get it into the red axis, type 90. It's important to just move it a little ways so that SketchUp knows which way you want to move it. Now, these two still won't fit together because I still haven't got them quite right relative to one another. So I need to rotate this one in a different axis, and now I need to rotate it in the axis parallel to this blue axis here. So I'm going to select it first, take my rotate tool, get it into the blue axis, and you can do that just by moving around onto different surfaces. But you don't have to always use your arrows on your keyboard, but you can. Now I actually have it kind of in default on the blue axis here, so I'm just going to use that, click once, move away a little bit. I'm going to turn it slightly and then type 90. And now I have two pieces that I can slot together. So back to select the piece I want to move, take my move tool, and here again I can move kind of randomly, but it won't stick together the way I want it to. What I need to do is choose a point that's going to snap onto another point. So I'm going to pick it up by this point here, this end point, and I'm going to move it and make it snap first of all onto that line, and then move down until it snaps onto the other end point. And so then I have a correctly drawn piece made of two components which fit together perfectly. And if I need to, I can easily make an exploded view like that. And that looks surprisingly similar to the one in here, and it's exactly the way it should be done.